The Premier League is back and Salah scored as he always does on the opening day to secure Arne Slot his first win as Liverpool manager. Tensions arose in the showdown as the Crows took on Port this week. All that and more coming up in episode 6 of the Armchair Athlete podcast. Arne Slot has become the first Liverpool manager to win his very first match as a coach of the club, and which is an astounding statistic when you consider some of the greats that Liverpool have had and how prestigious of a club they are. But I think it was really important to get that win, start the season off well, which is always a good sign. It's not often that a new coach is coming in where they're in the off season, the former coach has kind of stepped away. You see it very commonly in current sports where there's normally a sacking that leads to a new manager coming in. They're coming in with a bit of a disgruntled side. So you can understand how having a full preseason coming up against a newly promoted side in Ipswich Town gave him the best opportunity to get that first win. And I think everyone was expecting him to get that win. And then, but overall, I think it was a really good display, especially that second half. The first half just felt like a bit of a feeling out processes. I know I've seen from people saying Liverpool were really poor and obviously weren't great. It to me just looked like a side that was playing their first half of the season under a new manager is kind of how it came across. It was a bit of rust there, given the fact there's been an off season. I know there's been some international tournaments. A lot of the players have played in those, but it's still a different kind of atmosphere when you get to the Premier League. Not even that it's better or worse than these international tournaments. It just is different and can take a little bit of getting used to. Plus, they had to understand sort of the tactics that Arne Slot was trying to implement, plus what they learned from Jurgen Klopp as well. So trying to work out exactly where they're meant to be and what to keep from Klopp, what to implement from Slot is a lot to kind of take in. So I think that was not too surprising. One of the big things from Slot's perspective that I thought as a fan viewing him that I really liked was his bravery to take off Gerald Quansah at halftime and make that substitution and go, nope, something's not working here. I need to fix it. I'm not going to wait to see if we can just turn around the second half. I know how we can fix it. This time I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to do it. And because it's a tough call, pulling someone at halftime, especially a centre-back and a young centre-back at that, it can risk damaging the confidence of that player. And I'm sure he would have had the conversations and explained to Jarrell what sort of led to his decision to do that. And so I'm sure that'll all smooth over and he'll understand, especially given it worked. I think that can kind of, when you see a substitution work as the player being substituted, you kind of have to understand that's how it worked. Well, it's just kind of what was best for the team. So I think that helped him. But just having that bravery, I think, showed a lot in his first game. He's not here to kind of win the fans over first and then win games second. He's here to win matches and gone, the fans will follow me. As long as we win, the fans will follow me and I can deal with the PR and stuff. That doesn't seem to come as naturally to Arne Slot as it did to Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp was a natural people person and naturally charismatic to the media and stuff, whereas Slot feels very just focused on the football and implementing that. So I think from a fan, it was nice to see his identity kind of on display from the start as well, the changes and that bravery. But then Ipswich started strong as well. I think you got to give them a lot of credit, as you can't just put it down to Liverpool, kind of their rust and things like that. I think you got to give Ipswich a lot of credit as a newly promoted team. I was concerned coming into this game, I'll be honest, just because it feels like you see it every year. There's one newly promoted side that gets a win and kind of can have a strong start out of nowhere. And I could just see Ipswich were really good last year in the championship, and so the fact that the crowd would be bumping for it, given how long they've been out of the Premier League, and so I could just see, I could see where we went down early and then kind of struggled to regain it then. So the fact that we saw the first half out, and then in the second half we go, okay, we've settled it down, the crowd's quieting down, let's just play our style. I think that was a real maturity from the side, which was nice to see, and showed a lot. So, and in that second half, it was just the people you'd expect to stand up were the ones who stood up. You saw Salah got his goal, as he always does on opening day. That's now 9 goals in opening day games, I believe. He scored or assisted in every single one he's had in the Premier League, and a new record for most goals on opening day. So just another notch in his bow. Salah doing what Salah does and setting records. And for me, he's the best Premier League winger of all time, and he's arguably the best player of all time as well in the Premier League. So I'd be really interested to know your guys' thoughts on who you think the best winger of all time is for the Premier League, and who you think the best player is. Because to me, I go, well, he's had the output, so that's there. The numbers speak for themselves. He's won the league, and although to me that's a team accomplishment, so that does come secondary. It's not, to me, it doesn't mean as much. I mean, I believe that Gerrard's the best Premier League midfielder of all time, and obviously I'm Liverpool biased, but it's my personal belief, and I think he was just unlucky with how poor a lot of the teams he played in were, and so it wasn't necessarily on him. And so, but for the people who do value that highly, Salah's won the Premier League, he's got the output, he's got longevity now for how many seasons he's done it, like coming in what was it, 2017-18 season, I believe. So you're starting 7 years now he's done it. I mean, that's just unreal to continue that form on. And so I think, to me, he's the best winger in Premier League history, just for everything he's done. I find it really hard to see debates, and I think the only debate is if you, I guess, are going best winger to have played in the Premier League, then you look at your Ronaldos, who the best of his years were at Real Madrid, and that's where a large portion of his career was. So do you count that into it? To me personally, I don't. It was in a different league. You can't count that. So I'd give it to Salah. And so just when Liverpool were on, he was a big part of that. He was making stuff happen. He laid the first one off to Jota, and then he got his goal in the end, and could have had a couple more as well. Diaz put his over the bar. That was a really good opportunity. Not sure what he was even trying to do. He goes for this weird little flick over the... He flicks over the bar, but I'm not sure if he's just trying to flick it over the keeper. His body's really weirdly positioned to do it. It wasn't as if he was just trying to get a slight dink. It was as if he was trying to send it up quite high. It was a weird choice for him to make, and you can tell that side of Diaz's game still developing, and Liverpool hope he gets that a lot better this year, because that's been the one thing he's really been missing. Saw that. And then on that right side as well, his partner in crime, Trent Alexander-Arnold, just ran the show. Him and Gravenberch, Trent playing the right back and Gravenberch in the 6, but Trent inverting their triangles together, the way they could play, and then balls through to Salah. It was exceptional. And it was funny, I feel like I almost forgot how good Trent is, just because you hear the noise when he's in the England camps and the constant debates on whether he's good enough for England, which to me is ridiculous. He's clearly the best right back in the country. He's the best right back in the world. He's the best right back of all time. And is defending a strong part of his game? No. But I think his defensive frailties are so overhyped. A lot of his frailties, people go, oh, he's out of position. And there are times he is. I'm not here saying he's also the best one-on-one defender in the league either. But so many of his defensive positioning, poor defensive positioning, was coming from where Klopp was asking him to be in certain positions. He was trying to be higher up the field. He wanted him more attacking positions, knowing we'd have players cover him. That's how Liverpool functioned, and that's how we wanted to play. We were trying to get him further up, and the old school kind of right back who defends and then will just whip across, head pass. That was gone for Trent. He's plays inverted. He plays further up. At times you see him in that kind of 10 position, roaming around there. He has free reign. So to me, it was just a lot of misunderstanding, I think, about his frailties. He's actually quite good defensively. He's not amazing. He gets beaten sometimes. I mean, every defender does. let's be real, no one can know that you can't show me a fullback in the world who doesn't get beaten at some point. Wingers are just that good that sometimes they'll beat players as well. Like, it's just how the sport works. And so, getting back to his ball playing, just the ball for Salah through the middle, you sort of play some of the crosses to the far side to Diaz, was just unreal, and you just saw the absolute best of him in that second half. And same with Gravenberch too, especially when there's been a lot of talk about Liverpool needing a number 6 and who's going to play there and how it's going to work. For him to step up after last year, not really getting a ton of game time or as much as he probably would have wanted, I think it was really good to see him start and put down a marker that it's his position to lose, and even if we make a new signing, they're going to have to try and beat him out. And if he plays like that, it'll be tough to see anyone taking his spot. So I think it was really exciting to see he just controlled that midfield. And yeah, I just thought it was really impressive in how that all played, how Liverpool played in that second half. And the first half to me just felt, like I said, a bit just like a team playing the first game of the season under a new coach. Bit sluggish, didn't win enough duels. That was what Arnie Slot said as well about one of the reasons he subbed off Jarrell Quansah. He was just not winning enough of his duels. And so the fact that they were able to turn it around, and then as we move into this week's game, I think it's a big game against United from memory. If it's not this week, I know that game's coming up soon. So that'll be interesting to see. It's very early in the season for that game to happen as well. It's strange. I thought you'd think if you're just planning the fixtures, you'd try and put that maybe a month in, so when teams are kind of a bit more match sharp, you can try and get the best out of the game. So it'll be interesting how that plays out and how Liverpool go there, and we'll definitely talk about it as we review it. So I'm looking forward to that game. I'm always nervous, but I think it was impressive. And then a couple of other things that came out of the game was one, holy shit, do the refs still suck in the Premier League? I've said for ages that the AFL have the worst umpires or referees in world sport, and I still stand by that. They are terrible. It's also one of the hardest games to referee, so I understand that, and I think that AFL could do more to support them in making it better, but I just do still think they're the worst. But Premier League may be a close second because they are dreadful. How I can't remember his name from Ipswich, the player who should have been sent off. If you're seeing it, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to. When he's already on a yellow, Jota beats him, goes past, and the guy just picks up the ball, puts it back. And it makes no sense as to why he's not sent off, because the ref clearly sees it because he pays a free kick. In what instance can you pay the free kick seeing he's handballed it and not give a second yellow? I understand it's early, but everyone knows you can't just pick up a ball and throw it away. It is not basketball. That is not how this sport's played. And it was just one of the most ridiculous things to see. And I'm glad it didn't matter in the end. But if it had, it'd be up in arms week 1. Oh, it would be the second game of the weekend, and everyone would be complaining about the referees, and they'll never get it back. I mean, after all the debacle Liverpool have had in recent years with the referees and VAR, and I know a lot of people say Liverpool, but the numbers speak for themselves, and the fact that Liverpool are one of the teams who I don't want to say they get robbed by it, but they just end up on the bad side of luck when it comes to VAR more often than not. Well, it's not even luck because it is just poor decisions, but they just end up on the wrong side of it and miss out on either decisions that should go their way but don't, or they have decisions go against them when they shouldn't have, and things like that. So yeah, it was amazing. It was like, all right, week 1, well, this is what we're in for, I guess. They're still terrible, and I can't see it improving, and as people and athletes and like managers can't really talk about it, it'll just kind of keep going how it is. And yeah, it was astounding how that wasn't a yellow, and I just couldn't get it. But if anyone understands how the referee didn't pay that a second yellow and send him off, let me know in the comments, because I did not understand it in the slightest why that wouldn't have been paid. But the other thing that came away from this game is the talk about Mo Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold's contracts, and Virgil van Dijk's as well is coming up. Only got a couple years left, so they're the three that Liverpool need to do before they sign any other players. Well, I say any other, before they sign players, they need to make sure they're keeping these guys, because Trent, you can't replace him. There's just no replacement for him in the world. He is a one-of-a-kind player. You would have to change your system to make it work. And I'm not saying that change the system couldn't work, but he's just so unique. He's also the vice captain. He's a Scouser. He's the face of the team, essentially, going forward. He's the light for the academy players looking into it. This is what you can be. And so he's so important to the team. So you have to keep him. You have to keep Mo Salah around. You're just not going to be able to replace Mo Salah's output or impact for the money you'll get, because I don't think you're going to get 100 million or 150 million from the Saudis again. I think that offer's gone. And so what are you going to get? 50 million? Who are you going to replace Salah with for 50 million? That's just... Joe Gomez is rumored to be going, and there was a previous price tag of 45 million for him. So how could you... Who could you get to replace Salah for 50 million? You take another gamble on kind of finding another diamond in the rough, and if that works, great, but the likelihood is it won't. Especially not even though it won't work as in they won't be a good player, but they're not going to be as good as Mo Salah, who is still one of the, if not the best players in the league. You're just not going to be able to play, so you need to just keep him. To me, one of the things I love about the Los Angeles Lakers is they routinely treat their stars well. They understand the impact that they have for the stars, and so they treat them really well, and they in return then it's reciprocated. And people understand that. People want to go to clubs where they feel they're treated respectfully, and so I think that's something Liverpool should honor. I mean, Jordan Henderson didn't get the send-off I think he deserved from Liverpool for his time as captain and everything he did for the club. He kind of just went over to Saudi, and that didn't really pan out and such, so that was disappointing to see. But then you see what Firmino got, and that goodbye. And I think Salah deserves that for everything he's done for this club. I think he deserves that, and I think you just try and keep him, and then if you can keep him for a couple of years, and then after that he walks away from his contract and goes somewhere else, I think you can say okay and leave on good terms like that. But just selling him, I don't think works. But he's too good to let go now from his contract. So Liverpool need to get that wrapped up. Trent's too good to let go as well. Yes, not going to be able to replace him as well. Same with Van Dijk. Need to keep him around. Captain and vice captain, you've got to keep them. Best centre back in the world, best right back in the world. You just have to keep them around as long as you can. But hopefully we'll be able to talk that throughout the season and ongoing. Hopefully it gets done quickly, but we'll see how it all plays out. But overall, happy with that win from Liverpool. Looking forward to seeing how the next game goes. But let's discuss. I'll look at potentially discussing some of the other games as well. And so yeah, but Liverpool's win, I think it was impressive, and I think it was a lot of positives to take from it. And the BS is just they got the win, and that was the most important thing. You can't win them all if you don't win the first. So let me know your thoughts on Liverpool's win down below and their performances. Who are your favourite players? What were some of your thoughts? How do you think they'll go this season? Let me know in the comments below. Arsenal and City have started as they mean to go on with the Premier League coming back, and they were both able to get pretty comfortable 2-0 victories in the end. I think it was kind of, as I say, kind of is what you would expect from these sides to continue doing. And you saw them after Liverpool got their win, was discussed earlier. Then you saw they would have wanted to follow that and make sure from the start they're getting that win under the belt and continuing on. And so I think it was an important result. Haaland scored for City, which is to the surprise of absolutely no one. And then Kovacic just dribbled through Chelsea's former team and then puts it straight into that top corner in probably the goal of the weekend. I mean, it probably would have gone to Eze's free kick if that had been allowed, which was unlucky for Palace. But that goal was unreal. Dribbled through and curled. So in the end, fairly comfortable for City against Chelsea, which you'd expect would be a relatively tough game. I mean, Chelsea just seem like a shambles of a club. Same with United as well, who managed to scrape their late victory against Fulham thanks to new signing Xerxes. So they'll be happy to have got the win and their new signing to have scored. But how, to leave it that late, I know Fulham are a relatively decent side. In fact, they're not just a newly promoted side. They know how to play in the Premier League, and I expect them to still do all right this season. But they would have been wanting something a bit more convincing, even if it was at least earlier than the 87th minute. If they could have at least if they could have at least gotten a goal late first half, early second half, and then kind of held on and made it feel a bit more comfortable, that probably would have done them a bit of favours and a bit more confidence, especially after Erik ten Hag got the extension over the off season. And then City, just absolute shambles of a club. They've just got so many players. They just keep signing more and more players, and I actually can't keep up with who's on their squad anymore, to be honest. It's just constantly new players in, and they all seem to just be from same positions. I mean, it didn't really feel like they needed to sign Raul Neto, but they did, and he's a good player, and so he might be all right, but was he really what they needed? I mean, I don't trust Sanchez in goal at all. I mean, Cucurella, I don't think is that great of, their defense in general just kind of seems a bit shaky. So to be spending more and more money on attackers, it just feels like a owner playing FIFA. It's just how Chelsea feel like they're run, and it feels like it's just going to end poorly for them. And so I hope for their sake it doesn't, but I mean, I can see them really struggling this season. Just how do you get any team chemistry with that side? So the fact City beat them isn't necessarily that surprising. They'll be glad to have at least gotten the trip to Stamford Bridge out the way, just in case Chelsea do find a bit of form later in the season. You wouldn't want to have to go there and play it then. So get that win. Arsenal fairly convincing against Wolves to get that win. I think it never really felt too in doubt, to be honest. It felt like they always had control of the game and played really well. I mean, Saka's really stepped up. Last season, I think, was kind of that big season for him where he was really impressive, and this year Arsenal will be hoping he takes another one going forward. So that was just business as usual, you think, for those teams. They'll continue on trying to get those wins. Brighton, I think, were one of the most impressive sides over the weekend. To me, I think they're able to beat a pretty dreadful Everton side 3-0. Comfortable. Everton just sucked, plain and simple. I mean, the play where, I can't remember the player's name, but it ends up getting open goal put straight across the front, missing it. I think it was still 0-0. It might have been 1-0 to Brighton at this stage, and it was like, okay, that's the season Everton are in for, and it was just dreadful. Brighton look like they'll finish top half of the table again. They'll potentially, I mean, depending how bad some of the sides in that top 7 kind of go, that they might be able to slide into it, to be honest, because I think they're really well-drilled, good side, so I think they'll perform well. They've got that cohesion. I can see them having a really impressive side, like a Aston Villa have in previous years, or a West Ham had a really good season as well. I'm just trying to think. Burnley was the one that was coming to mind, who ended up having a season towards that. I can see Brighton kind of continuing having a season like that in recent years, and so I just thought they played really well, were really impressive to get it done. And Everton, this is their last season at Goodison Park before they go to their new stadium, and it would just be the most Everton thing ever for this to be the season they get relegated, and then they're in the Championship with this great new stadium, and they're trying to fight their way back. To be honest, if they go down, they'll probably bounce straight back up, but still, will feel like a season wasted, especially if it's the first season at a new stadium. That's the last thing they need, and so they'll be hoping to turn it around quickly, but that was just not a good sign at all for them. So it just, I don't know what to expect with Everton. I mean, I guess I expect them to be towards the bottom of the table, and it feels like if it was any other club, same team, same pattern of history, you'd be going, this is the season where they drop and this is the season where they go down. But because of Everton, and they're still quite a well-known club and quite a big club, and they haven't been relegated from the Premier League, you kind of go, oh, they'll probably just keep avoiding it. But at some point, your luck runs out, and so I'd be nervous if I was an Everton fan, but I think they're already struggling as it is. So that was just dreadful. Was the first word that came to mind as I'm watching that game from Everton. I was just like, that's just how they are. They're just absolutely abysmal. Newcastle managed to get their win over Southampton, which was another good display to get it in the fact they went one man down, which the red cards more so what I kind of want to discuss in this game. There's not really too many other talking points within the Premier League weekend, I think, for the most part, but that Shah red card, it was soft of Brereton to go down. There's no doubt about it. No one can argue that. Like, he's barely touched and he drops. But Shah can't let the referee have a decision to make. Essentially, you can't put yourself in that position. If you're forward, absolutely, if you get a head contact like that, you drop to the floor, because something like this can happen and give your team an advantage. And while Southampton weren't able to make the most of it, a better side would. And if it happened to Liverpool and a Liverpool player didn't drop, I would be annoyed, because you just got to do what you got to do to get an advantage. It's just a requirement. If the player's stupid enough to headbutt, no matter how softly, the opponent, then that's on them. Shouldn't have given them a decision. And so it was just poor from Shah to get that done. And especially when it's a straight red. I think straight red's automatically 3 matches, so it's not the way he would have wanted to start his season. Newcastle will be thankful they got the win, but obviously missing now arguably their best defender isn't ideal. So it'll be interesting to see how they can go in their games coming up. But it was just one of those, you saw it and you're like, I know that's soft, especially when, like, as someone who watches sports like AFL, and I saw what happened to Rankin this weekend in the showdown, and you go, I know, like, that's, I don't want to say a proper head knock, but like, that's a bit more hard knocks. It's a bit of a tougher end. The player's getting tapped and they're dropping down, but it's part of the sport. It just is. Like, if you have an opportunity to go down for a penalty or to get your opponent sent off, you do it. And I would do it if I'm playing and I get the chance. I'm absolutely doing it. Everything you can do to give your team an advantage, you've got to do. Especially if you're a Southampton side who's just been promoted, you're going to be in that battle again. You're going to do what you can do to try and get a point against a pretty decent Newcastle side who will be towards the top of the table in competing for Champions League spots. I expect they're going to do what they can to try and get at least a point, and getting a player sent off is required. So it's just dumb to put yourself in that position. And then another newly promoted side today, they got a good result. Leicester getting a 1-1 draw against Spurs. Spurs will obviously be upset with that. I mean, their goal was a delightful ball from James Maddison into Pedro Porro, just running through with the header. That ball was delightful. But then the Premier League legend, I was actually trying to think about this today. Where Jamie Vardy steps up and scores, player in friendship. So he steps up, scores for Leicester back in the Premier League. Is Jamie Vardy the best Leicester player of all time? I don't know enough about Leicester's history to be able to actually answer that. My mind went to Kante and Mahrez, who were good for one season, so I can't really properly judge it. I would just assume yes. I'm sure they've had some other great players in the past, but if you're a Leicester fan, let me know in the comments below, or if I'm forgetting someone really obvious that might have played for Leicester, let me know. But you think he's won for the goals he scored in the Premier League, how long he's been with them through thick and thin, won the Premier League, part of that amazing side. He has to be up there, right, if he's at least not one. So it was just kind of one of those thoughts I had. It felt like when he scored, it was just like, yeah, he's back. It kind of feels like it's the Premier League again with Jamie Vardy back, and it felt weird not having Leicester or Jamie Vardy in it. So it's good to have him back. Good result against Spurs, get that 1-1 draw. I think that's big. I hope Spurs do well this season, just because I want Ange to do really well. I'd really like him to perform well and get some good results, as I really like him for everything he did for Australia and being Australian. I really enjoy seeing him in the Premier League and getting those opportunities and doing pretty decently last year, but I think they'll be looking to press on, and if he can get a couple more seasons under his belt and keep them growing, I think they can do really well. I don't know, Spurs just feel like a weird club to get back into title contention. I just would struggle to see it, but I can see him potentially maybe sneaking Tottenham to an FA Cup or a League Cup, just something to get a trophy. I can see that happening. So I hope for his sake that if Liverpool don't win a trophy that's won by Spurs, I think that would be good. But overall, it was just, biggest thing is it's exciting to have the Premier League back. It was so good to watch. Still a couple of weeks left in the transfer window, so it'll be interesting to see what all the sides do and how that plays out. But it was just one of those, like, sitting down watching, just going, okay, it's back. My sleep schedule is going to be ruined. That now all the midnight and 3 a.m. games, trying to set alarms to watch Liverpool play, will be a nightmare. But it's what you sign up for in Australia, I guess. You know you're in for it. You just enjoy the break when it comes, and at least I know it's never going to clash with other plans, at least. So that's always something. But let me know your thoughts on the Premier League round 1, who you're hoping is, or what you enjoyed seeing, how you think all your teams will go. Let me know who you support as well. It'll be really interesting to see in the comments below where you guys, who you guys support and where you guys are from as well. Would be really interesting. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. It'd be good to see the feedback. In probably the feistiest and most tense showdown I've ever seen, the Port Adelaide Power were able to defeat the Crows by about 21 points or so. It was an impressive display from Port. I'll give them their credit first. They're the better team, especially after the incident with Rankin and Houston. They just ran out the game. They handled their emotions a bit better. My personal thoughts on how they're able to kind of shrug that aside a bit easier, I'll keep to myself, but they're not. It felt very within character is all I'll say, but to be able to get the win, they did play really well. Zach Butters to get the 42 disposals, a new showdown high ever. It was impressive, and fair play to them. They've been the better team all year. They were able to finally get a showdown win, which is something they've struggled to do in recent times. The Crows went 2-zip last year, plus in the AFLW and in the SANFL were able to get the win there, and then earlier this year the Crows were able to get the win there. So it was quite an entertaining game, I would say, up until that incident with Houston and Rachele, and then the tensions they were already high and they just went to a whole nother level, understandably so. But then you could just kind of tell that the Crows just couldn't quite handle the emotions as well as Port, and Port were able to kind of run away with it a bit in the end. But it was the entertainment aspect of it. I thought it was great. It felt like two teams that genuinely hate each other, and that's what you want in a rivalry, especially one that's as strict and as historic as the showdown is. I mean, it's showdown 56, the two, for my money, the best rivalry in the AFL. It just, in terms of how the games normally play, the hatred of them, I think it's the best rivalry, and it's quite common to see that kind of in two team cities. You can get that because I think the Western Australian derby between Freo and West Coast, I think that's also one that's up there. I think that two team city really adds a lot to it, and for the Crows and Port, tensions were high, and I mean, obviously a big reason for that was Josh Rachele's pre-match kind of media rounds where he said all the Port fans had no teeth, and rightly or wrongly, definitely rightly, he said that, and it didn't work out. The Crows lost, and obviously he looks a bit ridiculous now after doing the celebration. It looks a bit dumb, but for me, I still loved it because one, it's who he is. He brought the character to the game, brought the personality. It's what you want. I think that's only good for the game. I love the way the Hawks young sides as well will show their personality and the character. I think Rachele doing that was great. It was better. He knew the risk he was taking. He knew that when he kicked that goal, it might look a bit dumb, but it was worth it was worth it. It was entertaining. It added something to the game, and he'll know like, oh, okay, it didn't pay off, but guess what? Like next time if the showdown comes around next season, go again, and he'll probably try and rile them up again and keep it going, and it just adds more fuel to the fire. And I think that's only a good thing as long as it keeps it, as long as it's kept control. So I've seen something like the Port mascot, I think, was assaulted by fans, and that you can't be assaulting players or mascots or anything like that. Is not. It is like the rivalries in sport, in the grand scheme of things, they're not that serious. Let's be real. They're not that serious. I mean, like, I hate Port more than any other sporting team in the world. But it just is a case where at the end of the day, I go to work, I come home, like, I live my life away from the sport as well. Like, it doesn't need to consume that much that you actively hurt people. And so there's no excuse for that. You can't have it in sports of the world. Like, there's no excuse for it. But just from an on-field, that personality, the tempers flaring, I thought it was amazing. He knew the risk he had. I hope he does it again next time and take a look. But the real turning point, as I said earlier, was that Dan Houston hit on Rankin. As I'm recording, it's actually just being confirmed that Dan Houston will miss 5 matches for the hit against Rankin in the showdown, which, as I said, that was the turning point of the game. That's when Port just were able to kick away. The Crows kind of lost their heads a bit, and which was frustrating to see as a Crows fan that they lost their heads, but you could understand. I mean, it was a sickening blow, and I think it's important to note that even as much as I hate Port and I can say that I think they're dirty or whatever, you could see on Dan Houston's face that he didn't mean to injure Isaac Rankin. That he was on the bench, you could see he was visibly shaken by what had happened. You could just tell pretty much from that point on, even though Port were winning, it just looked as though Houston's mind was on Rankin and hoping he's okay. And that's obviously tough for him to go through, but ultimately he did make the decision to bump rather than try and tackle, and in a game of split seconds, like that decision made all the difference. But when you saw Rankin just gets cleaned up, and as soon as he hits the ground, all you see is the arms up, just stiff. He's just laying there when he's being tended to by the trainers. He moves out and his arms look like he's out. Like, it was a sickening sight to see, and just well wishes to Isaac Rankin. I hope he's able to recover and stronger. Obviously, there's no chance he'll play this week, and then he'll have the whole off season to get better. And so when concussions are such a hot topic, and rightly so, given how dangerous they can be to players' well-being long-term after their footy careers, it's always sickening to see. And you could tell that, Houston he didn't mean to injure Rankin, it was just an unfortunate side effect. He probably just got swept up in the moment. Kind of, they had clearly targeted Rankin to get under his skin and try and niggle him, which made sense because he's got a bit of a temper. He's proven that this season as well. He's not one to back down and can fire up himself. And he's arguably our best player, so he's the kind of player you'd want to target and try and get under the feathers. So I think that made complete sense for him. They were kind of little kind of dirty jabs and tackles and things they did to him throughout the game, which I don't like, but I'm also a Crows fan. I also understand it. It's probably something that I think teams should do more often, and especially in rivalries. I think it's just one of those for players, and it's kind of one of the reasons I did actually really like what Rachele did in the media rounds, even though it didn't work out, because it felt like the players were invested as the fans. It felt like it mattered to them. Like, they're like, no, we hate you, we're going for it. Port fans hate us, we hate Port. Like, it felt like the players were really battling out, whereas sometimes you feel like in rivalries, you're just like, all these players are just mates, they're acting like they're mates, they're playing, and so they don't really care as much. But it gave that sense of, no, like, these players are really in it to win it, and there's real hatred between teams, and which is what you want in those kind of games. But obviously it's boiled over. The big kind of best, I think it was so many fines doled out. Unsurprisingly, Zach Butters gets one. Surely there's a point where you get fined so often you get a suspension that they can't all just be an individual basis. I mean, there gets to the point where, hey mate, you're the most fined player in history, and it's so much of that has been recent. We need to suspend you, but is what it is. Probably a conversation for another point. But yeah, Dan Houston, 5-game suspension. His season is over, so that's unfortunate for him. It's just one of those situations when you make that decision to bump, you run the risk of that happening. So it's unfortunate. And from all reports, it's likely that means his Port career is also over. So as he was rumored to be going to Melbourne, that seemingly did a U-turn because of kind of how just the state of Melbourne at the moment. Everything seems so up in the air about players like Petrarca and Clayton Oliver. I mean, I know Gawn re-signed, and actually Jack Viney re-signed as well this season, but everything else just feels all over the place. So you can see why he'd be rethinking that. But the Blues are apparently now interested, so he's a good player. So he'll do well. But yeah, it was a sickening sight, that hit, and it just fully changed the game. And then the last point, like, Port fans showed absolute lack of class, which I'm not shocked at, I'll be honest. It's just they're like Collingwood fans in that sense. They boo off Isaac Rankin as he's going off on a stretcher, and that is despicable. Like, it is one thing to boo a player on the opposition side, like, and that booing itself has been a hot topic. My personal view on it is showdowns and rivalry games, boo all you want. You should just never boo a player who's injured themselves, like as they're coming off, like Rankin was, or if it was another injury. I don't think you should ever do that. There always needs to be that degree of sportsman. Obviously, never boo a player for racism or for their race. Like, that is just never okay under any circumstances at all. And things like, I think if you're booing to get under the skin, or if it's like a former player returning home, it's a bit like, you left our club, like things like that. To me, I think it's okay on the field, but I think you need to people in general need to understand there is a degree of respect. It needs to stop once they're off the field, kind of thing. Like, you can't just continue that energy in their DMs and things like that, which I'm sure Josh Shelley will be dealing with. I'm sure Dan Houston's also copying a lot, so I kind of hope he's getting the well-being as well that he'll need to kind of get through this, because I think obviously saw with the mascot being attacked, like, he'll be absolutely copying it. So I do hope he's able to kind of move along, and everyone can kind of just leave it how it was. But yeah, I think just the bullying to me, as long as you keep it on the field and keep that energy, like hey, you're a former player, you're returning home, we're gonna boo you, put you off, hope you have a bad game, end it there when it ends. Or rivals, we're gonna boo you as you're kicking a shot and to try and put you off, things like that. It's fine, but never boo a player who's injured and things like that. It was just so classless and so unnecessary as well. You just like, what are you doing? This player is clearly knocked out. Not even it wasn't even like a 50-50. Like, the Lions fans did it to Rankin when he hit Starcevic, which at the time I thought was wrong for them because he was also concussed. In the ground, because I saw that game live, I live in Brisbane, I thought it was a bit more of a coming together and kind of just like an accidental thing. Looking back in the replay after the match in the next couple of days, I understood. I felt like the suspension was a bit much, but I could kind of get it in a sense. But like, at least looking back, like, I understand. I don't think they should have booed him in that instance, but he did come back on. So when he got the ball, I think I kind of get that you've injured one of your players. Like, that's I think that's fair enough to boo that player to get off, but to actually boo a player who's going off on a stretcher injured, that is just a whole another level of low. And it was just pure lack of class. From otherwise what was quite an exciting game, I think if you took away that hit and that game played out to the middle, played out to the end, and say how it was, I personally, and it might just be hopeful thinking, I think the Crows would have won in the end. Obviously shoulda, coulda, wouldas don't matter now. So but I do think that's how it would have went. It would have been, for me, one of the best showdowns in history, especially if you could have gone to another after the siren. I mean, the dream was similar to how Jordan Dawson kicked one after the siren. If Rachele did that would have been my absolute dream scenario for that showdown, but you probably would have had people storming the ground. So but I think seeing the tensions rise, I think that both teams really getting into the rivalry, I think made it exciting to watch. I felt sick watching that game. It just, showdowns are a whole different level of nerves. Like, I get anxious watching any Crows game, but watching the showdowns, just different gravy, to be honest. But it was exciting. Congrats to Port, they got the win. Hopefully they go out in straight sets in the finals, and next season we can come back stronger and go there. But ultimately, let me know your thoughts as well on Rachele, his celebration, his media antics, that Houston hit 5 weeks for it. Is that the right amount? Too low, too high? Let me know your thoughts down the bottom, and your thoughts generally on even the best rivalry in the AFL. Who you think it is? Do you think it's a historical rivalry like a Essendon Collingwood, Carlton Collingwood kind of thing? Maybe the Western Derby, not accepting the Q clash. Absolutely no fucking way that can be there. But all the rest, let me know what you think is the best rivalry in the AFL. We're finally at the final round of the AFL regular season, and it is all to play for. There's some big games coming out. Who's going to make the 8? There's still so many teams in contention. Top 4 still not solidified. Will Brisbane be able to get in there? It's been an exciting season. It's one of the best seasons in memory. When I discount the Crows' performance, just in general as a league, I think it's been one of the most exciting seasons to watch as a neutral for most of it. And so it's been really good. And I think something like the wildcard game that they're talking about bringing in, where it's like 7th to 10th play similar to the NBA style, I'm all for it. I think it adds a lot of excitement in the NBA. I think it can add a lot to the AFL here. It's kind of one of those, like, you got to really I would much rather that than a percentage dictate it, because the percentage can be impacted by so many different things. To me, it can be an indication that how good a team is, but I think it ultimately, there's too many variables to it that to really say, yeah, you're the 7th best team in the comp because of your percentage. I would much rather that mini tournament for the kind of play in, as the NBA call it, that kind of wildcard game, I think would be really exciting for the AFL to introduce. And so it seems like this, when it's been so close, it just makes all the sense in the world to add something like that. And I am assuming the ladder will kind of finish how it is, to be honest. I do think Carlton will just slide into the 8. I mean, if you saw my prediction video earlier in the season a few weeks ago, that writing it out, and I had them as premiers, I'm not sure how confident I am in that anymore. Unfortunately, my pick of the Suns making it, they fell off a cliff and decided that rather than winning all the home games and winning a couple away, we're going to stop winning at home and start winning away, which, I mean, I guess it's probably easier to try and turn around your home form than your away form, so I think that probably is something. But that video, we'll go back and review it and see how it did and how it looked. But ultimately it's not looking great. But getting back to, I think Carlton will finish in 8th to end it out. I think they'll be able to hold strong. Hawthorn, Bulldogs will all keep their spots. I think Freo will just miss out this season, so which will be disappointing for their fans. I saw there was an article in the Western Australian newspaper, I'm pretty sure it's just called the Western Australian, where it was the same one that took the shots at Adam Simpson retiring, or not retiring, being sacked when he left, and they had photos of the Freo coach and some of their players with Joker painting on it, calling him the Chokers, which is weird because it's like, well, you've taken shots at the 2 teams in your state. Who do you actually get behind? Like, surely you go one game, go to win, try and spur them on. Nope, just take shots at them. So it's an interesting tactic, but I do think they'll miss out, which will be disappointing for the Freo fans. And Carlton will slide in, and the finals, anything can happen this far, and it's said every year anything can happen, but just with how close it has been, I mean, it feels like if I was going to bet money, I would probably bet on an all Sydney grand final, to be honest. But who knows? Honestly, there's a world where Sydney go out in straight sets because they just can't climb back the lead that they'll inevitably give up in the first quarter, and so they'll go out. Lions could have taken that dip I spoke about previously, where they were kind of due one for going on such a run. They dipped off and then hit finals, and they'll bounce back. And Carlton find their form from earlier in the season, even though they've got next to no players. Maybe they'll be able to do something there. Hawthorn are in as good a form as anyone, so that's a chance. Bulldogs know what it takes to win from outside the 4, so all to play for. As long as Port don't win it, I'll be pretty content with any outcome. To be honest, I just hope for some good games. But it's interesting now because there's a lot of rumours about the off-season. There's a lot of teams, their season's now essentially done. They've just got the formality of playing that final game. And so there's a lot of talks. Richmond play the Suns this weekend in their final game. Dead rubber game, but 4:30 p.m. Saturday afternoon, cheeky 7:30 dinner reservation for Dimmer and Dusty. Maybe talk about coming out of retirement and heading up to the Suns. Wouldn't be shocked to see him up there. I think that's definitely a big chance. And then all the Melbourne rumours that are going on at the moment. Track reportedly wanting out. Clary's been rumoured to be on the move as well. Last year he nearly moved to the Crows. It felt like it was getting pretty close. It was gathering a fair bit of steam. Didn't end up happening. So yeah, that might be on again. There's some war chest in play. The Saints, the Roos, the Crows, all rumoured to be wanting to be big spenders in free agency. If I could have any player who's rumoured to be leaving for the Crows, it would be Christian Petrarca-Barmel. I mean, to be fair, if I could have any player in the comp join the Crows, he would be in the top 3. It'd probably be Bont, Cripps, and him would be the top 3, to be honest. He's unbelievable. If him in a midfield with Jordan Dawson and Rory Laird and Jake Sligo coming through, like that would push the Crows to be really good next season. I reckon he'd be a big signing. I mean, honestly, if Clayton Oliver is an unbelievable player at his best, the last couple of seasons he's been a bit off it. It's tough to tell if that's to do with some of the off-field dramas he's had, whether that's impacting. You'd have to imagine so, but then again, sometimes players' form kind of falls off, so he's a bit. If Petrarca's like give him anything you can give to get him, pretty much do it. Oliver's, and that's a 10 out of 10. Oliver to me is probably like a 6 out of 10. Like if you can, like good play, if you can go and get him. But let's not kind of give up everything and go all in on him. And then if it doesn't work out, we're kind of screwed indefinitely. So that's, I like to say, I think the Crows making a big splash would be really good. I think we kind of need, we've got a very good like foundational level. We just need more of those Dawsons and Rankins in the team to really boost up the level. And I think if we can, next season for the Crows, like from our perspective, if we can make a big signing, let's say Clayton Oliver, for example, if we can have him, Rankin for a full season, Thilthorpe for a full season, that would be Fogarty improving. We'll get Miller back. We'll have Worrell for a full season. I can really see us having a real finals push, which was kind of what we expected this season, but then I think injuries kind of just threw it off and played out. So there's some big off-season moves rumored to be going around, and it's one of the issues I actually have with the AFL, the way it's run, is I feel like the off-season moves period is just too short. Like free agency is so short. The trade period is way too short. To me, basically, come the end of the season, the Monday after the grand final, open the trade period up, get to the week before the season starts, end it there, and then just have the whole off season. Let things develop. Let rumors circulate a bit more. Keep it in the media. And I'm actually been planning a video a bit more about what I think the AFL can and should do to try and grow, and looking at what the NBA does for their marketing sides of things and how they utilize the players and what they've got at their disposal, how they utilize that and what the AFL can learn from it and how they can go about it to be better. But to me, one of the big things the NBA does is it is just always in the news cycle. There's always something going on in the NBA, and they have some down periods. I mean, right now there's not a ton going on. Like, it's kind of the quietest period, but we're now only a few weeks away. Like, that down period is maybe a month, really, where there's not much going on. And so that's a big thing, I think, for growing the game, is just always being in the news cycle. Whereas it feels like the AFL just get to trade period, or get free agency, get to trade period, and just kind of turn it off, forget about it, and then you get back to the start of the season. The season comes back around, and then it's a big thing for a few months, and then it kind of dies off. So the AFL needs to work on a way to really expand it out and give it a bit more relevance in the off season. So there was a big tangent that I wasn't kind of expecting. I think just heading into this final round, it's looking out for who's gonna get their spots in the finals. I mean, let me know below in the comments below is who you think will get there, how you think it'll all play out. Is the 8 how it is gonna be the final result? Will things change around a bit? Who's then your tip to actually get the premiership now that it does look a bit more solidified? You kind of know at least the players. I mean, can include Freo in there. Collingwood, their percentage, they're not going to make that percentage back with enough results going their way, I don't think, to be able to be a chance. But yeah, who's your tip to make it? Who do you think will win? And who do you think will win the Brownlow as well, actually, now the regular season's wrapping up? I mean, Dacos had a big performance. Here's a chance. Cripps as well, putting a team, basically a VFL team, on his back. That was a big display. Are we going to have the awkward moment at the Brownlow when it's Heaney to win and then whoever is second actually gets the medal? Is that how it's going to play out? Let me know in the comments below just your thoughts. Yeah, kind of a quick wrap up, as we'll do a bit more of a fuller season review once we get to finals. We'll start previewing that and then reviewing the teams that missed out. All right, that's been episode 6 of the Armchair Athlete podcast. I appreciate you all listening. Kind of just covered off on the showdown, Liverpool's wins, and then bit of quick catch up on kind of the other topics in the AFL and the Prem. Relatively kind of brief on those, really wanting to dive into my teams and discussing Liverpool and the Crows, as they're kind of the things I'm most knowledgeable about, and also the things I'm most passionate about. So when I get an opportunity to go a bit more in depth about those, I'm definitely going to try and take that. But make sure to leave your comments below as to any topics you want me to discuss, your thoughts on the video, any feedback in general as well. And make sure to then like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any other future videos going forward. And yeah, as well, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.